Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Better Together podcast, where we explore the real stories behind resilience, reinvention, and building something that lasts. I'm Shawn Sundsvold, your host for today, and beside me, as always, is my partner in business and in life, Kelly Sundsvold. Today's guest, Marques Ogden, owner of Ogden Ventures LLC, knows what it means to rise and to rebuild. He's a five-time bestseller, he's a speaker, he's a business owner, he's a former NFL offensive lineman, and he's the host of an amazing podcast called Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. But none of that came without unrelenting adversity. After retiring from football, Marques launched a fast-growing construction company only to lose nearly $2 million on a single project and ultimately declaring bankruptcy. At rock bottom, he found himself working as a janitor for $8.25 an hour. That low point became a turning point at what he calls his spoiled milk moment. Through grit, humility, and a deep commitment to growth, he rebuilt a career that now spans keynote stages, best-selling books, and partnerships with more than 85 Fortune 500 companies, including Amazon, Intel, JP Morgan Chase, and Home Depot. Marques doesn't just talk about success, he teaches what it takes to fail forward. His story is a powerful reminder that setbacks don't define us. It's what we do next that matters. Marques, welcome to the show. I am so glad you're here. I've really been looking forward to this conversation.
Thanks so much, Shawn. Thank you, Kelly, for having me on your awesome podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, let's start at the beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to the NFL and what it took to get there?
Yeah, so I'm from Washington, D.C. I went to St. John's College High School in Northwest D.C. I got a full scholarship to play football for the Howard University Bison. My dad played football for the Bison. I grew up about 15 minutes from Howard, so it was amazing to go to college and be not that far from your hometown where you grew up and your actual house you grew up in. I was able to be a four-year starter at Howard University. I only got one scholarship offer to play football in college, just one. That's it. No A programs, one double A Howard, no D2, no D3, nothing. So I tell young people it only takes one
Mm.
school to believe in you. That's it. So I got to Howard and I was like, oh, if I become a starter for 2 years, maybe my last one, that'll be fine. That's good. So I ended up becoming a four-year starter. I redshirted my first year at Howard, and then I started as a redshirt freshman at right tackle. And I ended up being a two-time All-American, three-time All-Conference. I got drafted to the National Football League by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and our head coach was also a rookie, Jack Del Rio. I knew Jack from his time in Baltimore with the Ravens, along with his time in Carolina. He was a coordinator for the Panthers. It was great. I mean, I loved being coached by Jack. I love being a Jaguar. I love being an NFL athlete. A lot of sacrifice, a lot of discipline. Because to get to that point is one thing, that's hard. To stay there is another level. So, again, the discipline, the drive, the focus that it takes to become a professional athlete. I tell my young people I train in football, do speaking events for sports, because I started out speaking in sports programs and I kind of went to larger opportunity. I said, if you're not going to be willing to put the work in, then don't even bother getting started.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember like when, it was a big deal when Jack Del Rio actually became the head coach for the first time. Like I remember watching him as with the Vikings growing up and just, being the amazing athlete he was. And it was a big deal when he kind of took over the Jaguars because he was new and he brought in a lot of different, mental, and mindset things that hadn't been there before. Can you talk about that a little bit and what he brought
Yeah.
into that program?
One of the things that Jack really loved to talk about was the work ethic piece. So he talked a lot about chopping wood. He talked about just being an individual that puts your hard hat on, puts your work boots on, got your hands dirty, rolled your sleeves up, and every day you came in there and you were just chopping wood. You were being disciplined, you were being focused, you were being driven to be the best. And it was awesome. It was amazing because having that type of coach was not just inspired because as an athlete and a player, your coach who also played is bringing that energy. It allowed you to realize that this is how you need to be acting in life overall, not just football. Because Jack had a powerful saying, be your own CEO. Be your own chief executive officer. Jack said, don't wait for me to tell you what to do, where to be, where to go. That's not going to work. He said, if that has to happen, you won't have a job for the Jaguars for long, and you won't last the NFL for long, and you won't be successful in life at all. So I really was able to connect with Coach Del Rio in that regard. I have a great amount of respect for Coach Del Rio, and I always thank him every time I see him for taking a chance and drafting me into the National Football League. And again, right, Kelly, right, Shawn? When I left high school, I had no offers until the very, very end. So to go from an athlete in high school with no offers, getting one offer at the very, very end, think, oh, if I become a starter for a year or two, that's awesome. That's great. I'll get an education, all that. Becomes a 4-year starter. And then, like, oh, well, you know what? Gee, I'm not bad at this game of football. Let's see what happens. Let's just go all the way with it. Let's put the work ethic in. Let's lift. Let's run. Let's see what happens. I end up getting drafted into the National Football League. So, again, like I tell my athletes, tell people in general, one opportunity. I always tell people, in uncertainty, there's opportunity. Because I wasn't sure what's going to
Mm,
happen when I got to college and how I had no idea. It was uncertain terrain. But I tell people all the time, in uncertainty, there's always opportunity. I also say this, whatever you go and look for, you're going to find. If you look
mm.
for darkness, stress, hard times, adversity, you'll find it. You can look for solutions, discipline, doing things correctly, taking advantage of opportunities to win or be your best, you're going to find that too.
Yeah, that's really good. We always have football playing in our house over the fall and winter. It's just there's so much to it, and I know it takes so much discipline. So, what did football teach you about work ethic, discipline, and leadership that's really stayed with you even after you left the game?
Kelly, what it taught me was the work you do in the dark will show in the light. So, for
Mm.
example, I ended up having full body stem cell injection procedure about 8.5 weeks ago in Park City, Utah. Did the procedure. The first week, I was kind of like just to stay doing pretty much limited to nothing for the most part. Week two, I could get back into walking, back into lifting lightly, working the process, right? I just kind of followed the program. Here we are now, about 8.5 weeks after the surgery. I played basketball for the first time yesterday after my
Wow.
procedure. It's been about 10 weeks since I played. And what I played with no pain, I could sprint pretty decently, I could cut. And again, before the procedure, I was operating at about a 10% capacity. I talked about it, I put a post on social media. For 2.5 years, I was the weak link on the basketball court. Now, I'm talking about a good
Wow.
player because my body is just from football and damage, I just couldn't do anything. So my point is, I took the procedure, but not just that. I do what I'm supposed to do in the dark. No drinking. I haven't had a drink in 3 months. And you know what? I probably won't even go back to it. 'Cause honestly, I just feel better without it.
Mm.
But the doctor said alcohol kills stem cells. Period. Period. So
Hmm.
if you do it and you drink after a week or so of doing it, going to not only is not going to help you, you could end up hurting your body even more, right? He said,
Wow.
work out, but don't do basketball for at least 8 weeks. I went back on the court at 9, right? Don't do it in the first week, but get back into walking, lifting. I do that. I'm stronger. I feel better. And I've lost probably about 20 pounds since then. And I can see in my face and how I feel. I feel better. My body's healing. My point is, being an athlete taught me all these things about discipline, about drive, about focus. Because a lot of times people say, well, Marcus, you can't drink for 8 weeks. How do you survive? It's my mindset. It's like I made the decision to
Yeah.
invest in my body. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. That, Kelly, and that, Shawn, is what an athlete taught me. Now, how I'm doing as a speaker, as a coach. Like, for example, I woke up this morning, like 3 o'clock this morning. I couldn't sleep, got 5 hours. You know what? I got a bunch of work to do for the weekend. Let's get it done now. So from three
Yeah.
o'clock until 5:43, and I had to be up at 5:45 this morning. Eastern Standard is how I take my daughter to school. I started at 3 o'clock. At 5:43, everything for the weekend for next week was done. got 5:45, got to my daughter to school, got my processing done. Here I am now. After you guys interview, get my call, get my daughter back home, getting things and keeping ahead of the game. That's what being an athlete taught me how to do.
Yeah, that whole momentum of life, right? Just having the foresight to just keep moving forward, right? And you spent a lot of time in the NFL, and so you get to the point of retirement, right? And deciding, hey, it's time for me to move on, to do something different. Did you have a plan for that, or was it just like you left and you had to figure out what to do?
So I did not have a I ended up after I lost everything, I ended up trying to figure out after football had done and my father passed away, I was like, what am I trying to do here? What am I going to get done with my life? So I ended up putting myself in a position, trying to push myself to do something more. And that's how I found construction. And I got into construction and things were going well. We grew to be an amazingly large company, but unfortunately, I ended up losing everything because of my ego, my bravado. It just didn't work out, and because I just got so focused on things that didn't matter, so focused on things that didn't matter, and so as a result of that, I ended up moving down here to Raleigh with no money, bankrupt, broke, not know what to do. So I got here, I had to be humbled, unfortunately. Well, actually, fortunately, but unfortunately at the time. But it was the best thing for me. And I said, wow, Marcus, you put yourself here with bad decisions and ego, this pumped up, inflated, thinking you're better than everybody else. And the result of that, I said, wow, I need to get myself in a better position. So what happened is, as a custodian, I ended up having my rock bottom spoiled milk moment. And that moment where someone's trash, rotten meat, nasty, protruding, horrible smelling garbage got all over me, that was my wake up call. And I said, if I don't change now, I'm going to be here on this curb for the rest of my life, period. So that's when things changed for me. But to answer your question more specifically, I had no plan at the NFL, none. I was trying to get myself back on even keel. I was struggling. I was going through hardship, all these things, built a successful construction company, lost it all. And then I ended up coming here, had to be humbled, hitting rock bottom, to start speaking, which I started to do. Took me a little bit of time. And now here we are over what, 12 years, going to where we're at. But again, I've been up, down so many times in my life to get where I'm at. But I didn't really have like a plan per se. Things kind of fell into place. But now with speaking, consulting, podcasting, all that, now we build plans and systems and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the story of like that rock bottom moment, right? And I it was something you and I talked about when we first got started, and had our first conversation was when you hit that rock bottom moment, you don't realize that's your rock bottom moment, right? You get to this point, you're like, wow, this is really hard. And then you almost get tested again, that like a second time of, is this really your rock bottom moment? Or are you going to let yourself slide even further? Right. Like, what did it take for you to kind of pick up a little bit and move forward in that moment and to keep your resilience in the process?
So what happened was I had to really understand that in your journey, you're going to have ups, downs all around. And what happened is I finally developed more resilience than the resistance I was facing along the way. What I also realized is, right, Shawn and Kelly, that I had to lean to my attributes over
Mhm.
my skills. I had to lean into perseverance, grit, determination, all these things in order to get where I'm at today. So in reality, it was just a series of events over and over again where I was knocked down, I got back up. I lost my construction company, moved here, filed a bankruptcy, hit rock bottom, made a decision, worked my way back up. Things were going well in my life. 22, out for divorce. That put me back down. Moved into an apartment, feeling like a failure, feeling like a phony. Why am I divorced? Why am I here? Then from there, had to climb my way back up. After 2.5 months of this deprivation, degradation, feel like I was just a complete loser because I'm now divorced, unfortunately. So I've just constantly been a guy that has faced so many adversities, hardships, struggles along my journey to get where I'm at today. So I just realized over time and over just effort that I have a lot more resilience than I do resistance.
I love that. It's very relatable. Like we've talked about this. Sometimes the most challenging times can prove to be the most creative times. It's how Gold Bear Media was started out of a challenge, and we shifted and pivoted as a family. You get creative. You're like, okay, this is not going to knock me down. I'm going to pick myself up, and I'm gonna do this because this is what I have to do. So when you were at that spot where you were at the rock bottom, what was there someone or something that gave you that initial push? Or did that have to come completely from within?
So when the rock bottom moment, I think it was going to change in my life, it was going to have to be me. And I'll tell you what, that's a hard place to be in,
Yeah, it is.
especially when you're at the bottom. You have no money, you have no resources, you have nothing, absolutely nothing. And so at the end of the day, what I realized at that moment is that if I'm going to get out of here, it's going to have to be me. It's going to have to be me. And as what's the old saying? It's me versus me. And again,
Mhm.
if you're listening to this awesome podcast, and if you're listening and you're struggling at this moment, I can tell you right now, 2013, between April and September, some of the worst months of my life. I was broke. I was broken, full of brokenness. I had nothing, nothing. So I'm going to tell you right now, what had to happen to me was I had to realize with the rock bottom, and I'm hoping if you listen to this podcast, if you're struggling, you don't have to hit complete rock bottom like I did.
Mm,
I hope not. If you do, understand this. It's okay. You too can get your life back. But the key is, the catch is, it's got to be you
Mhm.
against you. It's
yeah.
nobody else. Nobody's going to come and save you. Nobody's going to come and give you a hand. Sorry, it doesn't work that way. What it does work is you saying, hey, I don't like where I'm at. I'm going to get myself up and moving in the right direction. Now that does work.
Yeah, for sure. And it's, the pain of changing, it's less than the pain of staying the same, right? You have to get to that point where you realize change has to happen and you have to be willing to take those steps to do it,
Well, here's the
so
thing, right? It's just saying, right? What's it saying, right, Sean? If you're wanting something to change, but you're doing the same things all the time, what is that?
mhm,
Insanity.
Insanity.
Insanity. You're wanting, you're expecting things to change, but you aren't changing. That's not going to work. That is just straight insanity. So again, at the end of the day, if you want something to change, you have to change. Right.
yeah,
Again, I'm not the same person. I can say, well, I used to have my work day done. Oh, I'm so tired. And now, I'm still tired at the end of the day. But now, right, at 3 o'clock in the morning, if I can't sleep, if I know I can't sleep, I'm not gonna sit there and try to force myself. I can't do it. So I'm gonna do. I'm gonna work. I'm gonna get
yeah,
things done. I'm going to what? I'm changing. I can't expect a company to go from where we are to where we want to be if I don't change, right? If
Right.
yeah,
I don't do things differently, if I don't put the extra effort in, the extra mile in, right? Just like in your
yeah,
life, if you want to lose weight, but you're doing the same things, not eating differently, drinking all the time, not working out, it's not going to work, right?
yeah.
So if you want something to change, you have to change.
Mhm.
Gotta own it. Gotta own
Yeah.
it. So looking at your life today and you're a keynote speaker, you're an author, you're a business coach, you're a podcast host. Like it's a very long list of things that you are involved in, which I love. But you've already said it wasn't an overnight success, right? What were some of the first steps you took to kind of rebuild your life in this sort of second act for Marques Ogden?
So when I started speaking in September 2013, the first thing I did, I didn't ask for a handout. I went to people in my network and said, hey, if you know of anybody looking for a speaker or wanting a speaker, please let me know. I have no experience. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, and I have no idea how to help you. I don't, but I want to do it. And not charging. I'm doing it for free to get my credibility up. So I didn't go to people saying, hey, try me and pay me 10 grand. I said, no, look, I'm starting at the bottom. Please, if you know anybody looking for a speaker, just let me know. And I did a couple of my clients got me to some small, middle school talks. And then one of my clients, he's actually one of my first clients. I trained both his sons in football. Mr. Dave Nisbisky. He worked for NetApp, a Fortune 500 company. And I said, hey, Dave, I'm trying to speak. He knew about it. He said, Marques, we have an opportunity to have you come and speak. It's going to be in Chicago. It's in April 2015. We're not paying you. We'll pay your travel and your lodging. Are you in? I said, I'm in. Did that job. Now get this. I bombed it. I did horrible. And I thought I did great. And Dave said, Marques, we had lunch after. Marques, how do you think you did? Oh, Dave, I was on point. I got the energy. I thought it was awesome. What did you think? He said, Marques, let me ask you a question. I said, sure, Dave. Did anybody come up to you and tell you that you did great? I said, no. He said, I said, well, what happened? Great energy, Marques. Great passion, wrong topic. So what do you mean?
Ooh.
It said, we had you come talk to CXO, doctors, doctors and nurses. We want to hear about your struggles with, the NFL, concussions, all these things. That's what we wanted to hear about. You talked about your business failure. You talked about cadence. We don't really have any tie to that. This was a CXO dinner for doctors, nurses in the healthcare space. Your business talk, in a nice way, put us to sleep. I said, ooh. He said, Marques, I'll give you one more chance to come and speak for us in Miami. Again, another CXO dinner. That time, I knew the theme. I knew how to tie it in. I got my first Fortune 500 letter testimonial from Dave and NetApp, and that began our journey to now we're over 85 Fortune 500 clients in the last 8 years.
That's really awesome. It's, a couple of things that you mentioned about going to your referrals and going to your friends and asking for referrals. We've talked about on the show before about you're only as strong as your network and really using, not using in a bad way, but just really networking with your network. Make sure that you're staying on top of that and don't be afraid to start at the bottom like you did. You don't know until you take those first steps. So tell us about Ogden Ventures and what kind of work you do now. And who do you love working with the most?
Ogden Ventures is our parent company that's keynote speaking, business coaching, corporate consulting, brand ambassador, and being a podcast host. We love speaking the most because speaking started us on this journey, and it's what we love to do to inspire people to achieve more. We also want them to aspire to be more for themselves. We want to aspire them to be more. We want to inspire them to inspire others. So speaking is absolutely my first love. I love coaching as well. I love everything that we do, but speaking started us on this path, in 2013, September. So speaking will always be the foundational piece that has allowed us to build a very successful, well-respected organization.
That's awesome. And along with speaking, you also have written 5 best-selling books. Is there one, message or mindset shift you hope readers walk away with as they read your books?
The success cycle is by far most popular, and it's 3 keys to become successful and prosperous in your life. Ambition, which means create a blueprint. Drive, right, which means be inspired over motivated. Hard work. Focus on yourself, not the competition. When people are ambitious, have blueprints for their success, when they're driven for the long haul, not the short term, and when they can focus on themselves, their it factor, what they bring to the table, and not everybody else, that's when you can create success and prosperity in your life. So we're big on the success cycle and taking that and allowing it to help you build and go forward in your journey.
Yeah. So talking about your podcast a little bit, Get Authentic with Marques Ogden, what made you want to launch it? And what kind of conversations are you the most passionate about?
We wanted to launch it, Kelly, because so many people want to talk about authenticity, but at the same time, nobody wants to talk about authenticity. Nobody wants to
Mhm.
be vulnerable, wants to be real. So we created the show because we wanted to have people have a show, a place to go to be inspired, to aspire to do more through authentic, real, raw conversations. We've interviewed celebrities, musicians like Sebastian Bach, David Archuleta. We've interviewed movie producers like Leif Bristow, his daughter Brittany, who's a big time actor on the Hallmark Channel. We've interviewed Travis Payne, who was Michael Jackson's choreographer. We've also interviewed people from Dancing from the Stars to everyday business leaders to authors. Doesn't matter. As long as you are authentic, as long as you are real and vulnerable, you will fit our show. So people love coming to hear our episodes because they know it's not about the phony, it's not about the fake, it's not about the fluff. It's about the real, raw, vulnerable conversations that people need to know in that regard.
Mhm.
I love that. And I think, for entrepreneurs, sometimes it's really hard to be that vulnerable, right? Because you're wearing all the weight of your business and, and becoming an entrepreneur and getting things started. For those entrepreneurs listening and, and those, like we've said, going through hard seasons, right? What advice would you give to them about building the grit and finding strength to keep showing up and to keep moving?
This is a real strong topic. Let me tell you this, my friend. Ladies and gentlemen, pain and suffering, being stuck in the mud, does not last forever. Doesn't last forever. So what you have to do, you have to focus on the future. I absolutely hate running with a passion. The art of running to run, I hate it. But I do it 6 days a week, either through basketball, boxing, or actual art of running, because I've made a promise to myself. I'm accountable to myself to do what is necessary to keep myself healthy and as best I can in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, you can lie to everybody but yourself. You can't lie
Mhm.
to yourself. I could tell Kelly and Shawn,
Right.
hey, I had a great workout today boxing, and I was out there with my trainer and get my butt kicked, work on footwork, and this. I could tell you all that, right? You don't have no idea if I'm lying or not, but I do. I can tell you right now,
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
7:30 with Brian till 8 o'clock this morning, I was out there for 30 minutes, 2.5 rounds with a minute round between rests. I got about good 25 minutes of work today with that boxing trainer. Ladies and gentlemen, pain and suffering, hard times don't last forever. The
Right.
more you focus
Yeah.
on them and dwell on them, they last longer. So if you're
Yeah.
struggling, focus on the future, the outcome that you want, and that will help you get out of that feeling of feeling like in despair, darkness, or hardship.
Yeah, for sure. There was something you mentioned in there, about knowing, you know what you did, right? You can tell a story to the world about what you did, but you know whether you did it or not. And I think that ties really well, like that idea of integrity ties into authenticity, right? Like, do you kind of pair those together in
Yes.
everything that you do?
Absolutely, because I have an acronym for bison. Integrity, sorry. So bison, boldness, integrity, self-awareness, ownership, never quit. Authenticity and boldness, they're like first cousins. You have to be bold and authentic in a very unauthentic, fake world. And integrity, what does Jeff Bezos say? Your character is what people say about you when you're not in the okay?
Mm,
So your integrity is going to drive people to either want to work with you or not. And again, it's job. I'll tell you like this. If you want to build trust with people, be reliable, right? Be competent and have people's best interests. Where people fall
mm,
off most is they're not reliable.
Yeah.
They're not
yeah.
reliable. They're late, they lie, they this, they that. They don't do things properly. Say I can't make it, they just don't show up. And I could tell you all kind of stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, be reliable. Being
Mm,
reliable and having integrity, again, are like brother and sister. When people know you are reliable and you show integrity, everything else will take care of itself.
For sure. For sure. That's so good. Such a good reminder. So this is a great conversation. How do people find you?
They can go to our website, Kelly, www.marcus, Ogden, Ogden.com, and email Marcus at marcusogden.com, or you can check out our podcast, Get Authentic with Marques Ogden. We're on Spotify, Apple. We have a YouTube channel, and we look forward to connecting with you and seeing if you think our content is a good fit for you.
Awesome. Well, Marcus, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for your time and your insight and sharing your experience. I really appreciate it. And, looking forward to hopefully having another conversation with you soon.
You as well. Thank you, Shawn. Thank you very much for having me on, Kelly.
Thank you.